And I really wasn't even conscious of the fact that I didn't understand business. I just knew I was good with customers, but then obviously as you start doing billing and invoicing and actually trying to run a business, you kind of get that wake up call really fast. So to be learning not only the business side of things, but even part of the technical that I didn't realize, just had no choice but to dig in and figure it out. And, experience is the best teacher.
Welcome to Business Underdog. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm really excited for you to hear this episode. Today, I interview Roy White. Roy is founder of Fixed Rate and Guaranteed. Just not only an amazing professional and built an incredible organization, but he's just a really genuinely good human being. And I think what I learned from the episode was, we talk about, being successful in our businesses, and whether that's HVAC, plumbing, marketing, software, but we don't talk enough about how are we being successful as human beings. And I think Roy takes that to the highest level of recognizing that how I serve my customers, how I serve my team as a servant leader, how I provide more value than I get payment for is one of his keywords, really has allowed him to be successful in business and successful in life. So I'm super excited for all of you to hear this episode. You're going to enjoy it as much as I did. And thanks again for joining today. I'm so excited to introduce Roy White. Roy is founder of Fixed Rate and Guaranteed, was recently awarded Eastern Region Contractor of the Year with Service Nation. And what I'm really excited about, when I started Business Underdog, Roy is literally the person and the type of leader I had in mind of people that I wanted to connect with, people that I wanted to have their story out there, because so many other service-based leaders and businesses have the same challenges and same struggles that Roy has overcome throughout his career. So with that, welcome, Roy.
Hey, thank you very much, Eric. It's a pleasure to meet you and a pleasure to be on.
I appreciate your time, and having a chance to read a little bit of your background. I'd love to just kind of get into it. If you could share your story, because it really is a fascinating story of success, trial and tribulation, success again. Really from the beginning, when you started your first HVAC company, why did you start it? What was your inspiration, and how did it kind of go?
Yeah, so it certainly was not pretty. I'll share that with you. I was a whopping 22 years old. I had been in the heating and air conditioning industry for 4 years. However, I really had only been in the heating industry. I was working for an oil company, so they had taught me oil heat. I hadn't even learned air conditioning yet. But what happened was, unfortunately, a year prior, my father had passed away, and I grew up kind of a scrappy guy from the trailer park. Not a complete knucklehead, but I had my knucklehead tendencies. And when I had the opportunity to start my company, it really was, at first, I wanted to make Dad proud, because he kind of saw me as the scrappy guy, and wasn't, again, a complete knucklehead, but I just wanted to prove that I could be the man that I wanted him to know that I could be. So that's really why I started the first company, not even realizing at the point, like, yeah, I'm probably going to need to know air conditioning at some point if I'm going to join the heating and air conditioning industry.
By joining that, by starting a company without knowing everything, what were some of the challenges you had entering an industry that you didn't have the industry knowledge clearly you have today, or probably even needed back then? What were some of the things you had to overcome?
Yeah, so obviously the first one being, I started in September, so I was able to kind of use the winter time doing oil calls. The gentleman who I was subcontracting for that kind of gave me the opportunity to start my own business, he kind of kept me busy through the winter time. But then as spring started hitting, it's when I kind of started realizing, like, oh yeah, I'm probably going to have to figure out this air conditioning thing in the summertime. So I literally had to send myself, to some air conditioning schools, because there was no YouTube back then. I mean, this was like 1994, when I'd started. And I really wasn't even conscious of the fact that I didn't understand business. I just knew I was good with customers. But then obviously as you start doing billing and invoicing and actually trying to run a business, you kind of get that wake up call really fast. So to be learning not only the business side of things, but even part of the technical that I didn't realize, so, but it was kind of good that I didn't know what I didn't know, because then I just had no choice but to dig in and figure it out. and, experience is the best teacher. So it wasn't pretty, but just kind of kept getting better every year, kept taking great care of clients, and kind of grew from there. But it definitely, as we grew, the lack of leadership and chaos started showing itself a lot more.
And then you sold your business in the like 2005, 2006 timeframe, which I
Correct.
assume was a successful outcome at the time. And then you made the obvious transition into real estate, very, very tangential into the world. And timing, as I read about your background, wasn't as exact as you'd have liked it. So I'd love to hear that journey into that real estate world. And then, as you share with me, actually going through the subprime mortgage meltdown, declaring bankruptcy, and then having to build yourself back up again. I mean, that's just an amazing story for many people to hear about.
Thank you. Yeah. So what happened? I'd love to tell you it was a strategic sale the first time around, but it really was. I got burnt out, just the chaos. We were lucky to make payroll. Just the age old story of a lot of businesses have faced. So the last year in business, I probably did make right around 100,000, but I was working 16-hour days. Well, I had bought a foreclosure property, the courthouse. I had bought one rental. Between those two real estate deals, I'd made about 100,000. I'm like, man, I got to figure out this real estate thing. I'm working 16 hours a day in heat and air. Let's figure this real estate thing out. So as I got burnt out in HVAC, I sold my half of the business. I brought on a business partner at that point. 3 years in, my best friend had joined me. So I sold him my half of the company. And in 05 and 06, I did really, really well. I went from, let's say, 0 houses. I had the one rental going in. But basically, in 05 and 06, I had taken a lot of real estate investing classes. The work ethic that I learned in heating and air just carried over to real estate. So I got up to like 27 houses, did a bunch of flips over and above the 27 rentals, and thought I was on top of the world. But then 07 hit, and I quickly realized what I thought, was me accomplishing great things. I realized I built a house of cards that came crashing down. And I could have blamed it on the subprime meltdown. Hey, you had Lehman Brothers and these Fortune 500 companies that were much smarter than me that didn't see it coming. But the reality was I just got into a lot of real estate deals that just quite frankly didn't make sense. And again, it was just a house of cards that came crashing down. So it was a tough lesson, but a valuable lesson in this grand scheme of things.
And as you that happened, you had to pick your piece, pick the pieces of your life back together and be like, go back to that scrappy kid at 22 and say, you know what, I've always been scrappy, and what do I do next? I'm sure you brought a lot of lessons from what went wrong into your next kind of entry and back into the HVAC world. So tell me how Fixed Right got started and how you made that transition back into the world.
Yeah. So I was super conservative, and honestly, if I'm being honest, probably a little bit broken, quite frankly, dragging my wife through my failures in real estate. That was a tough thing because when I sold my first company, I told her, so Michelle, trust me, I will do this, I will do that, I. And then where I put us was bankruptcy. So for her to kind of get drugged through the mud with me in bankruptcy, that broke me. Like I watched the bankruptcy trustee have my wife in tears at the bankruptcy table, and it was a low feeling. So for a long time, I had a lot of limiting beliefs, was ultra conservative, and was doing a lot of subcontract. When I started Fixed Right and Guaranteed in 2009, we were doing subcontracting work for an oil company. They sell a system, we go put it in. What I told myself was, hey, in the evenings, I can be on the ball field coaching my son, which was true. I loved that. But ultimately, it was the fear of, hey, I didn't want to fail again. So I wanted to be super conservative. But then 2018, let me back up. 2014, I actually went to work for NASA. So I was double dipping. I was an inspector for NASA, working full time and running my company. And then 2018, I just got pulled in too many different directions. So I made the decision to leave NASA. I was like, okay, now it's time to get over my limiting beliefs and figure out how to move forward and kind of take the lessons from the past and be smarter and play at a higher level.
And I love, that you brought it up there. And by the way, thank you for sharing, because it's a pretty vulnerable story to kind of discuss where you've been and where you've come from. So I just appreciate you kind of being so open and vulnerable about the background. And trust me, I could share some of mine too as we go through this conversation. But as you kind of entered back into it, as you said, you were kind of in the scarcity mindset early on, and then you kind of switched your mindset to more of that law of abundance and focusing on what can be versus what isn't, essentially. And I was like, there's not that many people in the HVAC world that speak that language, and so it's a language that I love, and I love talking about it, and I believe it's real. Like just like you, I kind of run my life and run my business based on laws of attraction and laws of abundance and things of that nature. So I'd love to hear how you really made that shift into that mindset and how that's helped your business really take the next step.
Yeah, so I might jump around here just a tad.
Yeah.
Because I felt like a failure for a long time. And I know it's going to be one of my last points I make, so I'll try to save it for that. But I finally realized, well, now I'm just going to share it now.
Go for it.
I
Yeah.
realized failure is an event, failure is not a person. So and I don't even know where I heard that, but when I heard that, it really, and when I internalized it, it flipped a switch for us. But I knew early on where I took us was bankruptcy. And I heard another line, is we versus me, right? So when I told Michelle, like, trust me, I will do this, I will do that. When I realized if I put it all on my shoulders, it wasn't a good outcome. God taught me a huge dose of humility, and better to teach yourself humility than have God teach you that lesson. So as a man of faith, I started kind of getting more into the Bible, and again, I'm not going to go down that path here necessarily, but I realized there was more to it than what I could do. So I started kind of praying for guidance, asking my wife what she wanted to accomplish, and just the whole we versus me mentality. Started getting into the leadership podcast and really understanding these leadership principles. And I was coachable. When I tried to do it on my own, I failed. And when I realized there's people much smarter than me and asking for guidance, it all worked out.
And that really led into, your service-related focus from a culture standpoint and how you build culture and ultimately how you serve your customers from a service standpoint. How do you think, it sounds obvious in the service world you're in any business, treat customers right and they'll appreciate it, but it's a little more, in many industries that, it doesn't matter what industry, it's not always the case. So I'd love to hear from your perspective how that service-oriented focus and culture you've created has really helped you become an industry leader in your field.
Yeah. So when I first entered real estate, it was strictly a money-based decision. And after going through bankruptcy, so I've made a lot of money, then I lost a lot of money, had a lot of pain through that process. It really kind of taught me the valuable lesson of what truly is important in life. And I give my wife a lot of credit. Not one time through all that did she judge me, but I really learned the servant leader mindset out of all of that. So when my mindset shifted from me accomplishing something or me making a certain amount of money to, hey, how can I personally make a difference in people's lives, whether it be team members, whether it be clients, whether it be my family, just shifting that mindset, it was like like the light bulb went off and everything just started really working out.
That's awesome. And many people probably have heard that word, servant leadership, but may not be as knowledgeable about what that really means. So for a practical standpoint, in terms of how you run your business with that mindset, what does that look like? And what does that mean from an application?
Sure. So it even comes down to like our accountability chart. If you look at the typical hierarchy chart or org chart, if you will, the boss or the leader is up top. Well, I don't look at it that way. I'm on the bottom. So my job is to coach, develop, support, my managers. Their job is to coach, develop, support, the people that report to them technically, right? So we just basically flip our org chart upside down.
Interesting.
And it's literally, how do we coach, serve, and develop our people?
That's great. And that was the next question that kind of goes into that of, you are so focused on service, but depending on how many employees you have, ultimately, it gets harder. It gets harder to kind of share that same level of how you would treat a customer may not be exactly how each of your team members treat the customer. What
Yeah.
do you do and how do you do it? And you answered part of that in terms of the way you look at the company, just to make sure that Fix Right and your brand and your name, every customer that touches that gets the same type of service.
Yeah, we do a ton of coaching within our organization. So kind of three focuses of our company, if you will. We literally call it culture, coaching, and KPIs. So we want to have the best culture where once we attract the best people, they don't want to leave. Then we coach them up to be better every single day. The KPIs, we know our numbers, so we're profitable in everything we do. But really the coaching component, where literally we're pouring into them, not just the technical aspect of the business, but even like life skills. So we just do a tremendous amount of coaching within our organization. One, because we genuinely care. And again, back to the servant leader, it truly is a mindset. Like they're not here just to make a certain amount of revenue. Yes, we know our numbers and certainly have expectations, but it goes much deeper than that. Like, hey, how do we help you make more money for you and your family and take great care of our clients? And again, with that mindset, being priced right, everything else just kind of takes care of itself.
That's great. No, I was, the next thing I hadn't heard this term in quite some time. I don't hear it that often, but you use the term prioritizing providing more value than you receive, which is awesome, and I'd love to hear, what that really means. And also, how do you think it's benefited your business as it's continued to grow?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I don't know if you ever read the book, The Go-Giver. I think it's like
Yeah.
probably law number one, maybe law number two of The Go-Giver, but it says provide more in value than you receive in payment. I love Service Nation Alliance. One of the first things that they taught us within Service Nation Alliance is to provide the highest value to all your clients and your team. And by doing that, guess what? You can actually price yourself appropriately because people will pay for better service. Well, when we really internalized that and were coachable and actually listened, we priced ourselves properly. Well, now we can attract the best people in the industry, let them take better care of their team. And now the retention, people don't want to leave and word gets out. And then all of a sudden you have people come knocking on your door to get in because they know we take such great care of our team. So yeah, it goes to clients and team on providing the value.
And it's important to you, to build relationships with your customers, and really not only relationships, but meaningful. These customers, hopefully with you for quite some time. Can you give some real life examples of how those relationships have helped you and helped your business?
Yeah, this one's kind of go not dark, but I'm gonna take it down just a notch. This is a pretty powerful story. One, and it goes back to what I shared earlier about my father. Because I lost him at such an early age, I do kind of think about legacy stuff probably more than most people do. So my personal legacy, I want to be remembered as a difference maker. So one of the things I always try to do is pour into people the best I can. So, God forbid, whenever I decide to leave this, or God decides I'll leave this earth, hopefully people will say the guy made a positive difference in my life. So I've been able to form some great relationships with our team members, but also our customers. Made a great friendship several years ago, a gentleman named TJ. And unfortunately, 3 weeks after I had met him, his 11-year-old son actually took his life. So a year later, I sent him a letter just because it broke my heart being a father. Sent him a letter just saying, hey, man, I know we just met, but if there's anything I can ever do for you, I'm here. A year later, one of my techs runs a call and says, hey, this guy needs new systems. So I went out there, presented, did not bring up anything about what happened a year earlier, because I didn't want to bring up a sad moment in the guy's life. Might actually be having a good day that day, right? Well, at the end of the presentation, he says, hey, I'll take both two systems. I need you to stand up. I'm like, okay. So stand up. He grabs me, and this big old tough motorcycle guy just gives me this big old bear hug. He's like, man, you have no idea how much that meant to me. So we literally developed a great friendship for several years since then. Well, 2 years ago, I run a call Christmas Day. There's a 4-year-old girl who had cancer. So we ended up taking care of the family that day for free. Ended up actually putting in one, they got two systems as well. One of the two we actually donated as our gift of heat that year.
Wow.
Got to be close with the family. Well, unfortunately, a few months later, the little girl did not beat cancer and unfortunately did not make it. So I'd only met the family really 2 times, but they invited me to her kind of remembrance of life. So as I'm there visiting him that day, the father shares with me that he's contemplating suicide.
Mm.
I'm like, oh my goodness, I am way out of my league here. The first thing I could think of, like, man, I've got to introduce you to TJ. So we invited them both over to the house, and TJ and Rich had this powerful conversation that night. And it was just like, man, in what world, when I started in the heating and air conditioning industry, did I ever think that I'd have 2 situations like these 2 guys that had like 2 of these traumatic moments in their life that we could have kind of put together to help each other. And it's just like, it's just amazing. Again, I think it's a God thing, but so I know I kind of probably went down a whole different path from
No,
what
by
you
the
might
way,
have been expecting there, but
it goes to everything, because ultimately, like, one of my beliefs is it doesn't matter. You're in HVAC, I'm in software. There's somebody who's gonna play baseball this afternoon at Coors Field, right?
yeah,
Ultimately, that's just a platform that we use to grow as human beings and professionals. And if we come to it the way you do in terms of how you run your business and how you run your life, those relationships and those connections, and to your point, God will put you where you need to be, where you need to be there. And you needed to be at that remembrance so you could introduce him to, TJ, to ultimately help his life. And that is everything and nothing to do with HVAC, right? That is just has to do
yeah.
with life in general. And that's the game we're all playing. We're not playing HVAC or software or whatever else. We're playing life. And I really appreciate you sharing that story, because I think that's gonna be as touching as I run a business more effectively. So that's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
No, my pleasure.
So transitioning from there, I'd love to hear more about where you're going with the business. So what are the goals and aspirations for Fixed Right going forward?
Sure. Well, I'd say if we have one superpower, it's definitely our culture. We've had several people come to our company, and I'm talking like major influencers in our industry, Mark Madison, Tom Peregrino, and several other HVAC business owners have come here at different times. And the number one thing I've heard, across the board is, man, your culture is legit. So going forward, no matter how much we do or don't grow from here, my number one priority is to not lose the culture that we have. I want to certainly grow enough that new people coming in today have a growth opportunity within the company, but I will protect our culture at all costs. I may really consider that like my number one responsibility.
And culture is the platform for everything you're going to do, which allows you to prepare for whatever changes happen in the industry. A good culture helps that transition, go forward. So how are you preparing for some of the changes? Specifically, how is AI, which we all hear about in every aspect of the business, and in my world, it is game changing. We're seeing it on a daily basis. I'd just love to hear, is it game changing in your world? Where are you seeing that? And how are you preparing for the next kind of evolution of what your business might look like?
Yeah, so at a basic level, I mean, we all remember Blockbuster, right? So no matter what, I don't think any of us can kind of stick our head in the sand and think that AI is going to go away. So we know we need to understand it and adopt it to whatever level we are personally comfortable with. That being said, I heard someone that I know is very knowledgeable in the industry that I respect made a statement that the rate of change right now is as fast as it has ever been, and it's only going to get faster from here.
Yeah.
So we have no choice. If we want to not be the blockbusters of the HVAC industry, we need to adopt it and utilize it. So now, our job as leaders within our companies is, okay, let's help our team understand the good parts of AI. Because yes, certainly a whole lot of things about AI can be scary, especially when it comes to banking and hacking and stuff like that. But guess what? When you have people out there like Blue On that can help you find model numbers at the drop of a hat or ask Master Mechanic a question. Yeah, there's so many different things within AI for scheduling, and there's so many great things it can do for our industry. So that to me is what we need to do as leaders, is educate our team how to use it to our advantage.
That's great. No, it's, to your point, you can't fight. You can't fight. Where the world's going. You just have to be able to play with it. And I have these conversations all the time. You talked about a few of the scary things, and people talk about job loss and things of that nature. And the reality is, we just don't know. We don't know what the new reality is going to be. But if we're not prepared for it, we're definitely going to lose. So I would love to kind of close this up, learning a little bit more about, what you have going on in the future. So, can you tell us about the upcoming company tour and annual success plan event you guys have planned?
Sure. Service Nation Alliance, they asked us to, open our business and do a company tour. So we're doing that. I believe it's September 30th and October 1st.
Okay.
I believe that's available through, Service Nation Alliance, serviceroundtable.com.
Yep.
Look up their upcoming events. There'll be some information there. And they've actually decided to couple that with an annual success planning. So, we'll probably have, I don't know, a dozen to 20 companies coming in from across the country to not only tour our facility and see how we do what we do and hopefully pull some ideas, from what we do, but also it just becomes a mastermind group. Like I found in the previous tour, we learned just as much from the people that came to tour us as they did from us. So it definitely goes both ways. And then the annual success planning portion of it, to kind of be on the front end, like September and October, you're already planning for 2026. That's just as a visionary and a leader. That's just going to, kind of help your whole team to be looking forward to what's available to them the following year.
It's really powerful to be able to kind of work with other people in the same industry, talking about best practices, things of that nature. And clearly it's, when you go out there, you're not only sharing, your day to day, but I'm sure you're sharing much of the same thing, much of your heart to allow people to understand you as a human being beyond you as an, HVAC leader, essentially. So really last question, I always love to end with this. I'd love to get any final piece of advice you have for aspiring entrepreneurs out there that are facing setbacks, that are running to the wall or something has gone wrong. What kind of advice would you give to them? I know you touched a little bit of this earlier, but anything you can expand on that?
Yeah. So literally, and again, I have no idea where I heard that line, but just the failure is an event. Failure is not a person. So we've all had our challenges in life, but if you study the most successful people in the world, they all have a series of failures in their past. The difference is they didn't just let it knock them down. They kept getting up, learning from them, moving forward. So was bankruptcy one of the toughest times in my life? Oh, absolutely. But looking back, do I regret going through it? I don't, because I would not have learned the lessons that have helped us have the success and fixed rate and guaranteed that we've had I not gone through that. So sometimes, the challenges of the moment might feel overwhelming, but just understand that's part of the process. Growth doesn't come without some pain and bumps and bruises. So if you kind of understand it's normal, and guess what, contractor of the year, I love something you said earlier. It's not always pretty. That's one thing that the more companies that I've toured and the more time I've spent with other business owners, we've all realized every day behind closed doors is not going to be all, roses and sunshine. But as long as you're getting better every day, taking care of your team, taking care of your clients, you're priced properly, everything else will just work itself out. So just understand failing events are part of it and just keep moving forward.
No, that's great advice. And, it's in every business, in every aspect of life. And you and I talked about this before, life doesn't go up and to the right, nor does any business. And so I don't care what business, we can name a business that we all have heard of, and we could tell you the times where they went up, when they went down, and they went up, and they went down. And Absolutely. It's just part of the journey. So, and you also said something that I actually find profound. And most people look at those down times as, man, if that just didn't happen, I would be on top of the world. And the reality is, I could say for myself, some of the most difficult moments in my life, they were even brutal going through them. But I look back and be like, I wouldn't be who I am today without them. It forces you to look inside, look at yourself, face the things that you could be doing better, and grow from them. And that growth, unfortunately, often comes from a little pain and evolve with it. And I have a lot of gratitude for some of the growth I have. I don't root for more. I don't root for more of that pain, but it does definitely help sometimes when you're able to reflect back and be like, you know what, that sucked, but I'm better off for it, and I'm happy I had the opportunity to learn from it. So thank you for sharing that, and I just want to thank you again, Roy. This was awesome. It was just awesome having you join the podcast. You are truly a business underdog, somebody that started from nothing and built what you've built today is incredibly impressive. And I appreciate you taking the time today to share your story, not just with me, but with everyone who's listening to Business Underdog today.
Thank you very much, Eric. I've heard great things about you from some mutual friends. So it's a pleasure meeting you. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome, Roy. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining me on this episode. I'd like to invite you to subscribe to Business Underdog on your favorite podcast platform. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode and you'll be the first to hear these incredible stories. Please be sure to follow us on social and visit our website at businessunderdog.com for episode updates, resources, and more. And thank you for listening today. Until next time, stay inspired, keep pushing forward, and embrace your inner underdog.